So one of the ways that we can open the database is that when we are interacting with a customer, a client, or even a prospect, and I would use this method when you have finished the interaction. If the sale is made, that's fine. If the sale is not made, if there's another step, if you have booked another appointment, if you have booked them to come to an opportunity meeting to go to the next step, you've done a fact finder, and now you're going to set up an appointment to come back and to speak to them again. There is a method, the referral method is a conversation that I'm actually going to give you the verbiage. Again, we are famous for giving you the verbiage. And with this verbiage, we're going to open up the database in the prospect's mind, and we're going to walk out with a minimum of 3 referrals in using this process. So I'm going to call the SP is going to be the salesperson or the relationship marketer or the direct seller. I'm going to have our prospect, we'll call our prospect Dave in this interaction, and I'll actually give you the words and actually take you through a script of how to actually open the database. One of the ways, if I'm going to ask people questions, one of the things, and you'll learn this in the advanced listening course and the advanced listening intensive, that one of the ways to control a conversation or to get control back of a conversation is to say to the prospect, can I ask you a question? It sets the stage, it shows that you are in control, and it puts you on a track. So you can see that in this interaction, when I finish my presentation, I've written up the order, I've signed them up, I've booked the next appointment. Even if they've told me no, I say, Mr. Prospect, Ms. Prospect, Dave and Julie. Hey, Dave, I'll go directly with. Let's assume I'm in the home in this situation. Dave, can I ask you a question? And 99% of people, when you say, "Can I ask you a question?" will say yes or sure. Very rarely will someone say why or give. If they do say something like that, then they're antagonistic. You don't have bonding and rapport, and you've got trouble. But in most cases, 99.9% of North Americans, when you say, Mr. or Ms. Prospect, can I ask you a question? They will say, sure, and now you are firmly in control of the conversation. And again, if you've heard me speak before, you know that a part of the problem that you have is actually finding a way to segue into the conversation about referrals. So what I've just given you, don't mistake it. It's very powerful. Mr. or Ms. Prospect, can I ask you a question? Yes, you can, or sure. Do you remember playing pretend when you were a kid? Now, most prospects will say, yeah, of course I do. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, well, of course. Great. Well, listen, what I wanted to do, Dave, is I wanted to play pretend for just a minute. Would you go along with me for just a minute? Just indulge me for a bit. And the prospect will say, oh, okay. They're a little curious. I've seen people, like, all right, what's up? What are you doing? Well, let's imagine, Dave, that your car breaks down at 2:00 in the morning. God forbid, but let's imagine you're completely stranded. You've got no AAA, no credit cards, nobody to call, and you've got to call a buddy, a friend, a neighbor, or a family member to come and help you. Now, just their first names. If your car broke down, you're stranded in the middle of the night, who are the first 3 people that come to your mind that you would call, that you could count on at 2 a.m.? Prospect says, well, I'd call my dad. Say, great. And his first name is, remember, because you told them, it's just their first names. It's Tom. Okay, Tom. Who else? I'd call my best friend Omar, and probably my brother. My brother also. Great. What's his name? Alan. Remember, sometimes you have to lead the prospect through the script. They don't know. They'll say that my brother, my sister, my father, my neighbor. You're going to have to say, and their first name is. Now, what I would do out of the role play here is I would have some version of what my friend Zig Ziglar taught me is called a talking pad. I would have a legal pad or some kind of a notebook, at the very least a piece of paper, maybe even one of your referral sheets is out with spaces for their names and numbers. And I would then, but normally I would just write this on a legal pad, and I might write number 1, number 2, number 3, and I would write down Tom, I would write down Omar, and I would write down Alan. I would write those 3 things down, those 3 names down right there, so that your prospect, that Dave, could see that I was writing them down. And I would actually turn the paper, turn the pad toward Dave, showing him 1, 2, 3, Tom, Omar, and Alan. And then I would say, okay, great. Listen, I appreciate you playing along with me. Now, chances are, Dave, that you probably don't know in great detail, each one of these guys' particular, their balance sheets, the amount of debt that they have, whether, they've got a financial future that they're looking at that looks really great or looks really grim. I mean, basically, if you're there at the family barbecue, questions about where are you gonna be in 5 years or 10 years are typically not questions that you would actually go into depth usually asking Tom and Omar and Alan. Is that true? You probably don't know a lot about what their their future is financially. You haven't seen their balance sheet. Well, no, I certainly don't know the details. Right. And then I would say, as a salesperson, I'd say, right. And of course, I don't know either whether or not they would have an interest in my business model, my business opportunity, saving money, protecting their family. Now you insert your product or service here. But do you remember when I originally called you and I told you that I just wanted to show you what I do, and that if it didn't fit for you, you could say no? Do you remember that, Dave? Yeah, I remember when you said that. Absolutely. Say, great. Well, that's exactly what I'm going to do and what I'm going to say when I call these people. I'm going to say, I don't know if you'll have an interest, but what I want to know is if you're going to be okay with actually being able to tell me no. Dave has referred me to you. And I want to know if you're okay with telling me no. And Dave, what Tom and Alan and Omar will probably say is they'll say, oh yeah, I'm okay with telling you no. As a matter of fact, they'll say, I'm okay with telling you to jump off a bridge. And I'll say, great. Well, that way there won't be any pressure to meet with me, because they'll know that they can honestly tell me that they're not interested. Now, Omar's last name is, and his phone number is, and Tom's last name is, I assume it's the same as yours. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's Tom Smith. Good. And Tom's phone number is, and I assume Alan's name is the same as yours. Yes. And his number is, well, I don't have their numbers handy. Do you have your cell phone nearby? Do you have an address book? Do you have a database? Do you have them written down in the back of your phone book? Do you have them written down in the cupboard? Where are these people's phone numbers? Most people have their cell phone nearby and can grab the cell phone. Now, I want you to understand what has just happened here. I have used this method over and over and over again, asking people to play pretend with me. By the way, if you're in a husband and wife or a partner situation, I would totally then look at the partner or significant other, and I would say, Julie, can I play pretend with you for a minute? Sure, okay, I'll play. Say, great. Let's assume that you have an emergency. You got to run out, and you've got to go out for 2 or 3 hours, and it just has to be done. There's nothing, not a tragedy, but something important. And it came up suddenly, and you need to call somebody to come and get the kids and to sit with the kids for an hour or 2 while you take care of this thing. First names only. First names only. Who are the first 3 people that you would call to come and take care of your kids? Well, I'd call my mom, great, and her name is Mary. And I'd call my sister, yep, and her name is Kathy, yep. And I'd call my next door neighbor, yep, and her name is Arlene. Great. And again, on the talking pad, I would go 1, 2, 3, and I would write down Mary, Kathy, and Arlene. Now, look at what we've done here. We have opened the database. And if I do the same thing and I say to Arlene, now this is the same deal with the names that Dave gave me. The people that you just mentioned, we probably don't know the details of whether or not they would be interested in any manner or form in my product or service. But what I'm going to do is when I call them is I'm going to tell them that just like when I called you, that they have the option to tell me no, and that I'm a big person and I can actually take a no, and it'll take all of the pressure off them. So there won't be any pressure because they will know that if they want to meet with me, it's up to them and they're able to tell me no. Now, your mom, Mary, her last name is, and her phone number is, and your sister, Kathy, her last name is, and her cell number, and who was the other one? Oh, and your neighbor, Arlene. Her last name is, and the number. Notice that what I'm doing here is I'm getting these. Notice very, very key phrase. Very key phrase. The question is just their first names. Let's imagine your car breaks down. You're going to call a buddy, a friend, a neighbor, or a family member to come and help you. Now, just their first names only. Who are the first 3 people that come to your mind that could help you, come and rescue you, come and sit with the kids, you would call to borrow money from? You can, you could use this, for first 3 people that you would call to help you move. If you have to move your home again, hopefully you never do. If you have to move again, great. Who are the first 3 people that you would call? Just their first names only. Who are the first 3 people that you would call to help you come move? Broke down in the middle of the night, come and watch your kids. You can get 3, 6, 9, 12 names and numbers using the referral method. And I'm going to tell you this works. You have to practice it a little bit. You've got to get the verbiage down. That's why I give you the verbiage here in this course so that you have it. But I'm going to guarantee you that if you ask people to play pretend with you, if you ask them if it's okay for you to ask them a question, and if you just say just their first names only, the first names will come out. And once you have those 3, then you can ask the other partner for another 3. You could walk out of every appointment with 6 names and numbers. Let's assume you're in the in-home selling profession. If you're selling in the home, if you're selling to individuals, and you were to walk out, imagine that you walked out with 6 names and numbers on every appointment. My formula for appointments is I want you on at least 2 appointments per day. If we just used a 6-day week, you had 12 appointments per week, and you walked out with 6 names and numbers of every one of those 12 appointments. Let's cut it back and say you just get 4. Let's assume that every week you have 48 new names and numbers to call on your list using the referral method, starting with, can I ask you a question? Can I ask you a question? Sure. Do you remember playing pretend when you were a kid? Of course. Well, I'd like you to indulge me for just a minute. I want to play pretend for just a minute. Would you go along with me? And this is where you smile. Yes, okay, let's imagine that your car breaks down at 2 a.m. You're completely stranded. You've got to call 3 people, first names only. Who are the first 3 people that you would count on to come and help you in an emergency situation? Again, just their first names. 1, 2, 3. I was just going to say, if you want to up the ante to 5, you could. Start with 3, you referral monsters. Start with 3. And start there, and then try to get the other 3. Walk out with 6 every appointment, and you will absolutely increase your number of names and numbers on your list. You'll increase your number of appointments. You'll increase your number of presentations, which will increase your volume, your number of new people coming onto your team. Ask for referrals. Have a referral consciousness. Make asking for referrals at every single interaction incredibly important. Make it a focus of your business. Go on a 90-day tear, maybe a 30-day tear. The next 30 days, just focus like crazy. Take your whole organization, your whole company, just focus them on referrals. Everybody we come into contact with, we're going to ask for referrals. We're going to give them the profile of who we're looking for. We're going to tell them that their referrals are needed and appreciated. And we're going to understand that 30% of those people will give referrals over and over and over again, and will be tremendous referral sources. And those people you're going to reward with things to prompt them and incentivize them to give you more referrals. Use this method. It will help you. I've enjoyed teaching you about referrals. Dream big and succeed.